An Arizona midwife is under investigation after a mother and her infant died when a home birth went tragically wrong. The State Department of Health determined the midwife, Sarah Kankowitz, who was in charge of overseeing that home birth, did not monitor the mother, Jordan Terry, and her baby's vitals as required, and she failed to follow her emergency plan when things went wrong back in December. Turns out there were several more disturbing cases involving Kankowitz in the past. One baby was stillborn, another baby survived after having to be resuscitated in a hospital, and another mom didn't get the proper vital checks that were required, which resulted in a citation for Kankowitz. The state issued a notice of intent to revoke her license back in March, but she has been allowed to continue practicing in the meantime. Yesterday, she had an informal settlement conference with the state, which was closed to the public. Let's take a legal deep dive into this case. Joining me once again is criminal defense attorney Kurt Altman of Altman Law and Policy. Kurt, I mean, you have to think, how on earth was Kankowitz still allowed to practice despite the complaints, despite the state investigation and the citations? I mean, it's wild. Couldn't the state be held liable?
I mean, to answer your last question, Tram, it's possible. They could be. Certainly, she has a right to due process with her license. So I'm sure the state wants to do that, wants to go through the appropriate procedures. But if they have knowledge of this history, repeated pattern of activities that are not so great, they could potentially be held liable. You know, 35 years ago in law school, my professor said, you can always sue. Doesn't mean you can win, but there is there's some precedent for that. They could be found to be negligent in how they handled her license.
Right, right. Okay, so we've also learned that Kankowitz did not have malpractice insurance, and apparently midwives are not required to have it, and it's really expensive. So what is the family to do in a situation like this?
Well, first of all, that's remarkable, too, that they're not required to have malpractice insurance. I have to have malpractice insurance.
Right, doctors have to have it, yes.
Exactly. So that being said, the family has some options. First of all, her conduct, again, with the pattern, could rise to the level of being criminally negligent. So they could get authorities. Authorities should be investigating this. I'm not saying that it was a crime.
Right.
Probably not, but it's possible. The other thing that they should look at is probably, does she own a home? Does she have assets? Does she have a homeowner's insurance? If they're looking for money compensation, which of course isn't going to compensate them for their loss, they can look there, and maybe they can go after that insurance. But beyond that, without malpractice insurance, I'm not sure what they do.
Wow, that is just incredible. All right, Kurt, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for all your insight and analysis on all 4 cases. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.